Welcome, architects and developers. Let's get started on mastering one of the most powerful workflows in modern software engineering, integrating Claude and test generation. Let's begin by defining what we mean by integrating Claude and test generation. We are talking about using Claude as an agentic partner to actively brainstorm, write, and refine software tests. The basics involve giving Claude context and allowing it to identify test scenarios. Why does this matter? Because AI-assisted testing speeds up development while systematically uncovering edge cases you might miss. How do we do it? You feed relevant files into Claude, ask it to brainstorm test cases, and then instruct it to implement them. For our deep dive, remember this core principle. Test generation provides Claude with a concrete, verifiable goal at each step, which dramatically improves the quality of the final output compared to simply asking it to implement a feature. Look at this flowchart to visualize the fundamental test generation pipeline. We start at the top by providing project context. Instead of jumping straight to coding, we move to brainstorming test cases. Once the tests are implemented, they act as strict guardrails. Finally, Claude writes the actual application code to pass these newly generated tests, ensuring high reliability. Moving to slide 2, let's explore the TDD iteration cycle. What is this? Test-driven development iteration is a refinement pattern where tests dictate the expected behavior before the actual code is written. The basics follow a strict sequence: write a failing test, implement the code to make it pass, run the tests, and refine the code while keeping tests green. Why do we use this with Claude? Because it provides explicit, verifiable success criteria. How do you execute this? You literally prompt Claude to write a test, ask it to run the test and observe the failure, and then instruct it to implement the function to pass the test. For our deep dive, recognize that TDD iteration is the preferred refinement strategy for complex tasks. It ensures Claude adapts its approach based on actual test results rather than making assumptions. This state diagram perfectly illustrates the TDD iteration loop with Claude. We start by writing a failing test. We run the test to confirm it fails, establishing our baseline. This failure triggers the implementation phase. We run the tests again, and once they pass, we transition into the refinement phase to optimize the code. This closed loop guarantees verifiable progress. Slide 3 focuses on executing these workflows directly inside Claude Code. What does this involve? It means using the Claude Code CLI to autonomously write and execute tests in your local environment. The basics are powerful. Claude Code can run your terminal commands, including your test suite. Why is this a game changer? It eliminates copy-pasting. Claude runs the test, sees the exact stack trace, and fixes the bug autonomously. How do you do it? First, feed context by asking Claude to read specific files. Next, ask it to brainstorm test cases and implement them. Our deep dive highlights that Claude is an effort multiplier. By forcing Claude to brainstorm tests first, you review and select the best scenarios. Once implemented, Claude writes the application code to guarantee those tests pass, resulting in highly robust software. Follow the sequence diagram to see the Claude Code workflow in action. The developer asks Claude Code to read files and brainstorm tests. Claude proposes scenarios, and the developer approves specific ones. Claude implements the tests and runs the test suite. Seeing the tests fail, Claude autonomously writes the application code and reruns the test suite until it passes, finally reporting success back to the developer. On slide 4, we tackle standardizing your tests using the Claude.md file. What is this? It's the practice of using Claude Code's memory file to enforce your team's testing conventions. The basics require placing your rules in the project-level.claude/claude.md file so they are shared via version control. Why is this necessary? Because without it, Claude might write tests in jest when your team uses featest or duplicate coverage. How do we fix this? You explicitly document your testing standards, valuable test criteria, and testing fixtures in the Claude.md file. For the deep dive, remember this critical best practice: always provide existing test files in your context. This ensures that Claude's test generation avoids suggesting duplicate scenarios that are already covered by your existing test suite, keeping your codebase clean and efficient. This tree diagram shows how configuration flows into test generation. At the root, our Claude.md configuration holds our project standards, the required framework, file naming conventions, and available data fixtures. These explicit rules feed directly into the Claude test generator. Because Claude reads these rules on startup, the resulting test output is perfectly standardized and aligns completely with your team's expectations. Let's move to slide 5, integrating test generation into CI/CD pipelines. What does this mean? It means automating Claude to run in your GitHub Actions or GitLab pipelines. The absolute basics for the exam require knowing the P flag. This runs Claude code in non-interactive mode, preventing pipeline hangs. Why do this? To automate test coverage checks and PR feedback. How do you extract the data? Combine the P flag with output format JSON and JSON schema to enforce structured, machine-parsable output for your CI scripts. Let's deep dive into a major anti-pattern, session isolation. The Claude session that generates the code must be completely separate from the session that reviews it or generates tests for it. If you use the same session, Claude retains its original reasoning context, creating a massive blind spot and confirmation bias. Always use separate sessions. Review this CI pipeline flowchart. When the pipeline triggers, notice how the execution splits into two distinct, isolated sessions. Session A handles the code generation. A completely fresh session B handles the test generation and review. Session B runs using the -p flag and JSON formatting to produce structured findings. This strict isolation guarantees that the generated tests objectively evaluate the code without inherited bias. On slide 6, we cover scaling your test generation using the Message Batches API. What is this? It's Anthropic's asynchronous API designed for handling massive workloads, like generating unit tests for an entire legacy codebase. The basics are that it processes requests within a 24-hour window. Why is this critical for enterprise architecture? Because the Batch API provides a massive 50% cost savings compared to synchronous requests. How do you implement it? You submit your test generation prompts as a batch job, tracking each file's request using a custom ID field. For our deep dive, you must master workload matching. Batch processing is perfect for latency-tolerant workloads like nightly test generation or weekly code audits. However, using the Batch API for blocking workflows, like a pre-merge check where a developer is waiting, is a severe architectural anti-pattern. This comparison diagram contrasts our two execution strategies. On the left, the synchronous API handles blocking tasks like pre-merge checks, delivering immediate responses at full cost. On the right, the Message Batches API handles our massive nightly test generation tasks. It accepts a delayed processing window of up to 24 hours, but rewards that flexibility with a massive 50% reduction in API costs. Let's bring this all together with a real-time use case, adding test coverage to a massive legacy application. Step 1. We deploy the Explore subagent to map the codebase and identify high-impact functions without cluttering our main context window. Step 2. We decompose this massive open-ended task by creating a prioritized test generation plan. Step 3. We utilize TDD iteration to generate robust tests for critical path functions, ensuring we feed generated tests back into the context to prevent duplicate scenarios. Finally, Step 4. For the thousands of low-priority functions remaining, we implement a nightly batch API job to systematically generate tests, yielding a 50% cost savings for the business. The outcome is a resilient, fully tested application. Thank you for joining. I invite learners to like, subscribe, and visit quicktechie.com for premium certification prep, including Q&A banks, full ebooks, audiobooks, full-length training, and interview guides. This final Gantt chart maps our legacy code turnaround strategy. We dedicate the first phases purely to discover using the Explore subagent to map the codebase and create a solid plan. Moving into execution, we spend focused time applying strict TDD iteration to our critical paths. Once stable, we offload the bulk of the remaining work to nightly batch testing, ensuring comprehensive coverage efficiently.
Welcome to quicktechie.com. So just type in quicktechie.com here. Then you can go through the material which is provided by Quicktechie. So we have first of all video courses which you can go here and you can find the various video courses across the technologies as well as finance domain. So if you see in Microsoft, we have 8 programs currently running. Next, you can go through the ebooks available. So all the ebooks which are in PDF format today, and you can download this. So let me go through Microsoft certification ebooks. You can click on any of this and you can see this is the PDF available for you to download. So these are the premium ebook mostly available on quicktechie.com platform only. Now the second part is exam simulator. As we primarily focus on the all technology companies and finance domain certification preparation material. So this is company wide listed here and you can go through this. So let me go through the Microsoft one again. You can see this is all Microsoft related certification. AB 730 exam, if you open it, so you can see here this and all the practice papers are available here. Today we have a 5 practice paper. So click on the first practice paper. It would load the questions. You can answer this question. This is way you can answer it and you can move to the next question. Now the third material we wanted to highlight is an audiobook. So we started recently with the audiobooks as well, which you can listen on the go, and various technology wise ebooks are available. And at the last, this is our alumni. These people who are subscribing to our courses and this platform, they are all listed here. And at the end, I wanted to tell you, if you find any course or training or certification preparation material which you want to get us prepared for yourself, please put on the comment section. If you're watching on YouTube, on Udemy, or on this platform itself, quicktechie.com, then please put the comment, or you can even send an email to using this contact us options here. You can directly do the WhatsApp message. You can call us on this numbers as well.